We're here in Florida, Orlando, for the A&A conference, and we're very, very pleased to have you with us, Marilyn. Marilyn is the Chief Marketing Officer of Cisco, and just pulled off the most amazing speech I think I've seen in a while. They always say you should never work with children or animals. I think the third one to add in there is technology, but I think it was a great proof point actually of the quality of the product that Cisco sells. And I think, caught all of our attention. So we'll get back to Yumi and Telepresence in a while. But tell us a little bit about the history of the Cisco brand.
Sure. Well, I mean, our company was founded in 1994, so we're only a 25-year-old company. So, and on your scale, which we watch religiously, as does our CEO, because I think there's some bragging rights amongst CEOs, where they end up on the, I'm sure you know that. But we're $23 and a bit billion in the brand ranking scale, so I think we're about $1 billion of brand value per year of being in business, which is pretty incredible.
And number 14, maybe we add on.
And number 14th, internally we always kind of, applauded the day that we passed Louis Vuitton, because we all stopped buying Louis Vuitton just in case that we could, pass them on the Interbrand scale. I'm not sure it made such a big dent in their sales, but brand's really important to us, and we create a brand for our business. And we've had two very charismatic CEOs, and if we're not careful, our brand can become our CEO. And we have to have a business that goes past the CEO. So we try and craft them as two separate things.
And always difficult, I assume, to build brands within a technology business, because so much of it is about innovation and staying ahead. So you can easily forget the importance of the relationships that you're building both inside and outside your business.
Well, like anything in marketing, people say all the time, well, I'm not persuaded by advertising, I just buy what's right. Well, advertising gives you an emotional reason, and then you create your own rational reason to buy something. In technology, we're surrounded by engineers and salespeople, and so engineers think if you build it, they will come, and the salespeople think if I get in the door, they'll buy it. And so, where does marketing sit at the end of the day? So, you have to have a certain capability in marketing not to be, you don't have to be at the top of the heap. You're always going to come a little bit after engineering and sales, and that's okay.
And I think one of the things that you have done very, very well in terms of managing the central proposition, I suppose, of the brand is that as long as I can remember, I've always been able to connect Cisco with one word, which is network. But then what you've managed to do very well over time is reinvent that and continue to make it relevant. Talk to me a little bit about how you've gone about that and the things that trigger you to realise that it's time to move on and reinvent again.
So about 5 years ago, we looked at our brand, and as we were moving into all these new markets, including consumer, because we had bought Linksys at that point, and we were going to rename these Linksys products Cisco, we stopped and said, well, we're going to go into these new markets. Does our brand really have permission to go into these spaces? And a lot of us internally, not me personally, but a lot of the salespeople thought, no, we're a technical brand, and we should stick to our knitting and core networking, which is switches and routers, which most people don't even know what that is, let alone connect a brand to it. But what we found was a very interesting thing. Our customers and our partners gave us permission to grow this brand much more than we understood ourselves. So then we thought, well, then how do we grow that brand, and how do we stretch it out? So we spent a lot of time really figuring out the strategy of how we're going to do that, and so got into some new categories. And it's still very surprising today when we launch a new consumer product. People say, well, you're in the consumer business. Well, now we're in, I think, the 7th year of our consumer strategy, but it's always a surprise to people because we're still so attached to the network. So now we're trying to change the conversation a bit to be, the network is the platform on which all these things in your life work. And it's not just about networking, per se.
And I think that's a brilliant point to perhaps talk about where you are going with the business. I mean, a lot of what you talked about this morning was around video, and how video has become a central plank to your strategy as a business and therefore as your brand. Talk to us about where the company's going and where the brand is going.
Video is I always say it's the river that runs through everything we do. And so it might not touch every single product, but it touches probably 95% of the products that we do, creating video. And video is the one really engaging technology today. So you yourself, you have all sorts of devices. I've seen them hanging off, and they're all blinking and flashing, and I have to call my voicemail and my email, and I'm tweeting here, and I'm texting here, and I've got 3 email addresses and 3 phone addresses. And is all that technology really helping you get your job done? Or is it just distracting you? And people feel like they have to multitask at once. You know, even in the meeting room today, we saw people who were texting and tweeting and catching up on their work. And you can empathize why they have to do that. They literally have to be doing it all day long to get it all done. So we feel that communications really should go back to natural communications, which is human interaction. I can see you and you can see me, and I can see in your eyes whether you're understanding me or not. If you're kind of, off here buying shoes online, I probably think maybe he's not kind of interested in what I'm saying. But that brings out that true, authentic human engagement. That's why we call it the human network.
And of course, one of the things that always got in the way, and has done previously with the existing video technology across the web, is that it's just really not that good.
Yeah.
And now what you're doing is you're bringing those amazing Telepresence suites that I've had the privilege of using a couple of times along the way, effectively into people's homes. That's really quite powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
How is it, obviously you've been testing this equipment, I'm sure within the business and also with people outside it. How is it changing people's behaviour? Because good brands and great products are about behaviours.
Right. So, I mean, if you want to Skype with your mom to the UK, I mean, you can have a fairly decent, video image, but the voice will be latent, and certain people will not be able to understand what that is, and so they'll end up talking over you when you're talking, and so then the conversation becomes very awkward and stilted, and so it's not a really natural conversation. Even though you can kind of see each other, it's not a great picture, it's not great voice latency. So with the technology today, with high-speed bandwidth, now there's virtually no latency. It's just like I'm talking to you, there could be a screen in front of us, and you're back in London, I'm in San Jose, and we can hear each other instantaneously.
And it really did look that good as well.
Yeah, and it is that good. Strangely, I don't know how it works. But I remember those old video conferencing things. I'd always have to bring some technical guy into the room, set up a certain code and dial something, and all those things. And I could never work it out. When I go into the Telepresence suite, it's just a phone, and it's got a calendar on it, and when it's my turn in the Telepresence suite, I just press the icon on the calendar, and it comes up. I don't know how that works, but it's quite magical.
It's very clever stuff, and I'm sure it's going to change people's lives to a significant degree.
Right.
What are the big challenges, do you think, for the Cisco brand looking forward into the future?
I think I showed 30 market adjacencies that we're going into, from sports and entertainment to small business and consumer, and obviously video. Collaboration is a big one for companies today. How do people really collaborate using video technology? So that's a big area of growth. But probably the one that's still going to be the biggest stretch for us as a company is the consumer market. Because it's a new business model. You use marketing to sell consumer electronics. You don't use a sales force, and the margins are different, and you have to create a brand and a draw, and it's just a different business. And so we think the acquisition of Pure Digital was great for us because it gave us a group of consumer electronic marketers who really know this space. And so we're coming out with this new product called Yumi, which is you and me, so we can see each other. And it's the first product that's coming out, completely under the Cisco brand, birthed by Cisco. So we'll see how that does. It'll be a big challenge for us.
No. And I suppose caught up within all of that, as you rightly say, moving from effectively a business to business to a business to consumer environment requires a significant degree of change. I mean, has the business had to do anything culturally to adapt to that? Because, we started the morning here listening from Mark Pritchard at P&G, and they live and breathe business to consumer, and that's what they are. So they wouldn't recognise any difference or change. But for you as a business, it's quite a significant shift, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. And, I don't think too many people, if you look at GE, they were business to consumer and went to B2B. They went from selling light bulbs to jet engines. And somehow that's, I think, maybe they wouldn't say, they're a great brand, though, General Electric. And I think it was an easier switch to go into B2B because they already had credibility in this technology in the home. For us, we're taking technology that's very complicated and then trying to make it very simple so that your mom can use it. And that's a tougher order, I think. So at the end of the day, it'll all be about the product. If the product works and people have great experiences, then we'll be successful.
So the one piece of advice, Bob Leodice, the chairman of the ANA, always asks this.
Right.
What's your one piece of advice to CMOs of other organisations who might want to emulate your success and be on the Interbrand Best Global Brands league table?
Well, I mean, I talked about two things this morning. One, everybody seems to be jumping on social media, social networking. And when I hear people talk about it, they talk about all these free impressions they're getting. And I hear that inside our own company as well, where people say, I'll just do a viral campaign and I don't need to buy media, it'll just come free to me. You know, these millions of people will watch my thing. But I think the better way to think about social media is this is social interaction you have with your customer. And it should be more of a listening device than a broadcasting device. And if you treat it like that, then people will have an open, authentic relationship with you, and that's what they really want with their brands that they really love. They don't want to be over-marketed to, especially in the realms that they consider to be their realms, their community social sites. And so I think that's the most important thing to do. Secondly, I would say about mobility. You know, this notion that, you know, any content to any device, to any screen, at any time. So if I have a favorite TV show, I should be able to see it on my phone and my iPad or whatever device I want whenever I want it. And so marketers really have to figure out how they're going to put their creative in that environment that can be really tiny. And you can see some of the ads on it now. It's like these tiny little bars going across the top, and you think, I'm not sure that's the best way to work it. So people are going to have to figure that out.
So keep adapting, I suppose, might be the simple way.
Exactly.
Marilyn, it's a great pleasure to spend time with you and to
you.
catch you after such a fantastic speech this morning.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.